Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the SDC number 918. This is a keypad is what it is, digital entry 630. You'll note that it says U there. That just means the finish. It's in a stainless steel brushed 630 is what they call the finish. That's what this keypad looks like. The keypad, or most keypads are actually, well, they're a switch. Is what they are. There are four components to a circuit. There's power, there's conductor, there's switch, and then there's load. Keypads are also a load as well because they require power to be run, although the amount of power it takes is all but insignificant, so they're primarily a switch. In this particular keypad or switch, it's a switch, whether it be just a light switch, in a bathroom, or it be a light switch that requires a combination to be entered. You're turning something on or off, or things on and off. Very simple and straightforward once you absorb everything, the paperwork. Your power, then your two different relays that are here, and we'll go over that. You have a ribbon cable that's included. Not a ribbon cable, just an 8 conductor cable. This allows additional functionality to occur with the keypad. Then you have your fasteners that are here. Some basic dimensional properties, and then we'll talk about what you would use it for. Single gang, obviously, about 4 5/8 by about 3 inch. So intended for a single gang installation. Weighs about 0.48 pound, just short of half of a pound. A couple of LEDs. Now, what would you use this for? Let's talk about that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, now what indeed will we use a keypad for? Well, you're controlling some sort of access control. You need to be able to have the ability to enter a code to enter a place. Probably not exit a place, but enter a place. And the general installation is going to be an electric strike, or electrified trim on an exit device, or bolt retraction in a mortise lock. You could have an electromagnetic lock. You could be shunting an alarm. You could be doing all of that stuff and shunting an alarm at the same time. You could be turning on something as well when you turn this, when you use this. It's basically a switch that you can wire to do either whatever the state is of whatever you want to activate. It's either inactive or active, and with this switch you can turn it to the opposite state. Turn it off. If it's off, turn it on. If it's on, turn it off. A couple of LEDs here, and they'll tell you that you are powered. They'll tell you that access is granted. They'll tell you that you have you're under quarantine, or if you're in programming mode. Quarantine means if a code is, you gotta, we'll get to the installation instructions. My memory's a little foggy. Powering it is easy, as I had said earlier. But again, you're going to use it in access control systems, whether they're going to be simple and straightforward, like a storeroom lock with an electric strike, and you want a keypad to be able to get in, or maybe something a little bit more elaborate than that. The a little bit more elaborate than that will utilize this cable. So I think what we'll do at this point is let's switch to the screen view, and let's look at this item and its supporting documentation. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are indeed looking at. We've got it as the SDC 918. It can be done in different finishes, which we currently have here as an option, but we'll show you the price list that will allow you to see from the manufacturer what the options are. So first and foremost, this is a keypad, is what it is. Standalone digital keypad. Now, standalone, a standalone keypad. That's important to know because it doesn't require a controller or a brain box. There are times when a customer just wants to keep an access control system as relatively simple as possible. You definitely want a standalone keypad at that point because you don't need necessarily a controller that you'll do all the programming on to control your keypad. You want the control to be done, well, whether or not you realize it, you want the control to be done in the keypad, keeping it simple and straightforward, meaning you're programming the keypad right at the keypad itself. You're not doing it remotely or from a computer installation remotely, or doing it from a remote location. You are literally doing it at the keypad. Perhaps that is certainly probably considered not an upside to a standalone keypad because you have to be at the opening. But for simplicity's sake, in a smaller system, it does serve that desire to keep it simple. Designed for access control of a single point entry for facilities with up to 500 users. There are 500 codes capable here. Each user gets a unique PIN, keypad entry, via a valid 1 to 6-digit code, activates one or both output relays, which releases an electric lock. So there are 2 relays here, and all that is fancy talk for there are 2 different things that you can control when you enter a valid code, a valid PIN number. We'll show that. 500 users, 1 through 6-digit PIN codes, 4 outputs, 2 relays, 2 solid-state outputs. We'll show you that. You can assign the pins to relays 1 and or 2. You have LED. Tactile keys with selectable audible volume for key depression or output activation. It's nice to be able to control the audible component of a keypad. Timed anti-passback. That means you enter a code and then you'll go into a lockdown or quarantine mode for a certain amount of time so that you don't have multiple people entering under the same code. Keypad tamper lockout. Just a programming feature. Request to exit enter input. You can use this keypad to control functionality in a request to exit function where you want to be able to deactivate something in the path of egress. Electrical characteristics, 12 or 24 volt AC or DC. Will handle 30 milliamps, 150 milliamps maximum. The first relay is single pole double throw at a maximum of 5 amps, 30 volt DC. Relay 2 is 2 amps. Outputs 3 and 4 are 100 milliamps at 30 volt DC. Dimensions. Okay, now there are some documents listed down below. Let's first look at the price list, and all that's going to really show us is, and by the time you're seeing this video, these prices will likely be out of date, but U is the finish code, stainless steel, polished brass, satin brass, oil rub bronze, bright chrome. Plug-in power supply if you want to be able to just hop power to power this. That's easy. You can have a plug-in power supply with this, meaning you don't want to, you're doing a simple access control system. Because this keypad requires power, you need to get power from somewhere, and they do offer a plug-in power supply. A shroud for the outside. For privacy, I would say it would be good for driving rain to a certain extent as well, but privacy shroud is what that's intended for. Very typical. Now, there's other links down below. Let's get to them. Datasheet. Let's take a look at the datasheet. The datasheet is sometimes also known as just simply a cut sheet. One notable difference about the 2 that are listed here is the 918 is an indoor keypad, not meant for exterior applications. The 920 is the one you'll install in an exterior application. And my reference to the shroud earlier was obviously a exterior rated keypad. Not much that this will do to keep weather off of it, that's for sure. 500 users, as we talked about earlier. Blue backlighting, moisture resistant keypad, thick stainless steel plate. It is. It's generous. There's no doubt that it's a thick plate. Looking here to see what I've not already said. DoorSense. We're going to talk about DoorSense when we get to the installation instructions and the other functions. Installation specifications. This is a document should you need to get something put into a set of architectural specifications to convey to others what your desire is in terms of a digital keypad. This is the entry that you could use for that. Now let's take a look at the installation instructions. 6 pages here, and that's don't let that overwhelm you. A lot of it's programming. Because it has lots of little nuanced options that are available to it, they just need more paperwork to get that all put together into a single document. Rugged keypad stainless plate backlit lights, 500 codes, 1 to 6 digits in length. That can activate one or both of the relay outputs. I'll show you that in a moment. Anti-passback feature prevents using the same code again before the programmed time elapses. All system indicators are long-lasting. Solid-state LEDs. The left indicator is red to indicate power. Turns green when access is granted. The right indicator is yellow when the keypad is in lockout mode from too many incorrect code entries, or flashes yellow when you're in programming mode. An internal sounder beeps when each key is pressed. An internal jumper sets the sounder volume high or low. There are a couple of jumpers on the back which we'll look at. One will be needed for programming purposes. Now, let's jump over here. This list of features, I'll leave that to you to review. We've touched on most of that. The sense input can be used in 2 ways. Now, sense input, they've got some programming that's happening here. But what they probably should be showing us first is some wiring before they talk about, well, maybe not, but seeing some wiring that's happening on that cable, that 8-conductor cable, is where the sense comes into play. The terminal block that's here is power 1 and 2. You're going to pull your common off of your positive power leg. That's normal. You're just going to jumper that over. Now you've got common powered on your main relay, which is 5 amps. You can power something normally open or normally closed. It is typical that you'll have a normally open setting when you're dealing with fail-secure hardware. So in the absence of power, the lock is locked. You'll have a normally closed configuration when you have a fail-safe connection, meaning it requires power to lock the unit. Normally open goes with fail-secure is what you need to remember. If you're studying low voltage, remember normally open goes with fail-secure if you can. Then there's a second relay down here that's rated at 2 amps. That right here allows you to control probably everything you're going to need to control. Be mindful, though, this relay is only rated for 5 amps. So if you were trying to electric latch retraction, a Von Duprin exit device that has a 16 amp inrush, that's probably going to be a problem. 5 amps is what it's rated for. Now those 8 wires are going to allow you to get some door position switches happening or a request to exit switch. Let's go back to where we were and then now start to talk about door sense. The sense input can be used 2 ways. If programmed for door sense, the input is wired to a normally closed switch on the door to detect when the door is opened or closed. So when you use that 8-conductor cable, now you can get input back from the position of the door. Is it open or is it closed? You'll use a normally closed switch just going to show you an example. Open loop, I think, is what we might be able to call this. But here's a door contact. This is single pole double throw, so you can wire it to suit your your conditions. But what I'm driving at is, let's look at the product catalog that's here. Click on that, and then normally open, a closed loop type. So there's 2 wires coming off of a door position switch like the 1078. which means, what did they say they wanted us to do? Normally closed switch. The input is wired to a normally closed switch, so just the opposite of what I was saying. Yeah, no, we've got it. Normally closed. Sorry, NC. So it would be an open loop type is what it would be. Meaning when you take the switch out of the box, it's the integrity of the circuit is closed, meaning when the door position switch comes out of the box, there will be continuity that will flow through that switch. When you install it and then close the door, that switch is now set to the opposite state, which is open. Meaning, when you open the door, the switch will now fail to its standard state, its native state, which is closed. That will allow continuity to run through. So you're now allowing continuity through the switch, which will then allow you to report that condition back to the sense input of the keypad. If programmed for door sense, the input is wired to a normally closed switch on the door to detect when the door is open or closed. There you go. Forced entry or door ajar situations can therefore be detected because you know if that door is open or closed. Using door sense, the auto relock feature will prevent tailgating by turning off the main relay output immediately when the door is closed after access is granted. So that means you'll trigger it, the door is opened, and when the door is closed, it will shunt the main relay, meaning you're not going to be able to activate that. And there's certainly going to be a time setting that you'll have. If sense input is programmed for inhibit, the input can be wired to a service switch or automatic timer that will disable the main relay when required. Request to exit input can be wired to a push button to provide codeless activation of main relay, auxiliary relay, output 3 or 4. So on that 8-conductor cable, you can wire that to a request to exit switch, which will allow you to operate whatever you are operating already with the keypad. So you can hop onto this keypad to wire something on the inside of the opening. And what would be typical for that would be a push button, a normally open push button for an installation with an electromagnetic lock. There's probably a sensor, passive infrared, where you walk up to the opening and the sensor will detect you, will unlock the magnetic lock, you're free to exit. There's also going to be a backup. Well, this application doesn't, the application that I'm speaking of is probably not code compliant because that push button needs to be wired directly to the power supply to cut that power. But you can have a push button that will then do the same control as if you were operating it from the exterior side. So you could have a keypad on both sides sort of scenario. When you're just using the one side keypad as request to exit. 918 EntryCheck is powered, 1224 AC or DC. EPROM memory retains all codes, even without power. An internal jumper is provided to reset the master code. The main relay this is just quick hits here. Main relay is a 5 amp capacity. Auxiliary is 2 amps. Solid state inputs as a result of that 8-conductor cable, 100 milliamps each. Signal forced entry, door ajar, lockout, alarm circuit shunting. Sure. When you open that door, you can have something else happen. Request to exit and keypad active conditions. Electrical specifications are here, which you can go over. Talks immediately about programming. Quick start programming to enter programming mode. Press 9, etc. I won't go through the programming because I don't have this powered live at this time. Enter the program mode, default master code. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Adding additional user codes are here. Deleting a user, and that's the downside of a standalone keypad. You have to go to the keypad to remove someone. The terminal block, as we discussed, and then the 8-conductor cable is here. typical elevation drawing of what it would look like, or a portion of an elevation drawing. Basic door installation is what's here. Keypad, electric strike. What they've added here is a door position switch. Why you would want that? You know, because you want to report back to access control that the door has been cycled, or you want a chime to go off, you know, when the door is open. Someone can keypad, but then you can have a switch do something else. Turn on or off an indicator, like whatever it might be. Keypad adjacent to the door, electric strike. A switch is mounted to the top for detecting when the door is open. 18 gauge wire up to 500 feet. If you're going longer than that, 22 gauge wire. The bottom line is 18 gauge. When I said larger, I mean a thinner wire. Use larger wire for longer runs. That would be a number smaller than 18. Use 22 gauge for other connections. So running it for power up to 500 feet, 18 gauge is going to work. Okay, and then you can use, you know, like your door position switch. You would use 22 gauge for that. Output, install a low voltage electric strike for unlocking the door. So this just talks about the standard installation. Power is here again, 12 or 24 VAC or VDC. Sense put is talked about here. Examples of what you could use that for. So I would suggest that you review that if you get into that functionality. And then more information on basic programming, which I won't go into here. No reason to read that to you. But if there's a particular question on programming, feel free to reach out to us. And that exhausts all 6 pages of this catalog, of this installation instruction. Now there's a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page. And from there you can pull up not only all of the SDC products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I use the SDC site all the time for configuring projects. Whether I'm doing a project or I'm studying low voltage, I think of SDC because their catalog is simple and straightforward to navigate. Their layout of all of their encyclopedic documents is simple and straightforward. Let's look at access control. You'll find options. Okay, for particular options, when you click on it, you'll find datasheet, installation instructions, price sheet, specifications, a summary here. Very easy to navigate, to get to know SDC's products. The items of theirs that I use the most are their electric deadbolts. Pretty simple, common, and straightforward material. One thing I like about electric deadbolts is that they are petite. You know, they don't take up too much room. They're elegant. They're concealed when the door is closed. The one that I like a lot is their $1090 and $1290. I like this guy a lot. I've used this recently for a client who is building custom wrought iron gates and very small style width. I forget, might be 2-inch. Very small. Let's look at the template. So the back set on this, I believe, is 1 3/4 inches. So therefore it wouldn't work, and I don't remember the exact size of the steel. It must have been larger than that, because this back set, oh yeah, the back set's about 7/8, or about, yeah, whatever, 7/8 of an inch. It could have been 2-inch is what it was. Very small back set on this lock. Where you have access control over the door, keypad, however you're going to electrically control it, but then mechanical override should you need that. So a really nice option. I've also had a client install these in the frame as well when it wasn't practical to get power to the door. A very unusual Fitz-Jurgens floor closer, a top pivot, and if you look up Fitz-Jurgens, they have it's a neat closer, but you're limited. There's no way to run power through the top pivot of that system. And hitting a brick wall, getting power through the door, actually I'll show it to you. So I pulled up a video of what the application was, and this massive mahogany door is hung on a Fitz-Jurgens floor. It's hung on a floor closer, and the client needs to add access control. And let's listen through to this.
How you doing, Rich? So we got the wrong lock here for this application.
Big giant mahogany door. The client or someone provided a mechanical mortise lock.
And we've got this big 10-foot, very heavy monster, and we want to put an electric strike on it, but it's in swing, and this jam is...
So the problem is the client needs to get power, and they want to run an electric strike. But part of the problem is what has to be done to the jam and to the door, because it's unusually thick. Electric strikes, you'll have to mortise a lot of that out, and someone like Hess makes lip extensions for electric strikes, but the client didn't want to mortise a lot of the door out like that. Pardon me, the jam.
7 inches deep, and we want to put an electric strike on it, but it's in swing, and this jam is 7 inches deep.
7 inches deep is what he just said. That's a lot of strike extensions.
And looking at that lock set, it's not going to work. So what we're trying to do is have an electric strike on this, and what I'm trying to figure out is what the correct mortise lock set is. So the way this closes and finishes out, you see how deep that jam is.
We'll get it.
We got to come all the way flush like that. And I'm planning on putting basically like an astragal here that'll act as a stop. And so, anyway, having said
I'm sure he did not get an astragal approved.
all that and showed you the video, what do you think? Any opinion on all this?
Okay, so what the bottom line is that we can't get power through the door. He wasn't trying to get power through the door. But actually, I think what they did supply was an electrified mortise lock, and that was a dead end because you can't get power through the door, through the top pivot. That meant the 7-inch deep jam and a lot of mortising. Client didn't want to do that. I suggested that we prep in the jam for this mortise deadbolt, and you can power it because the power was coming. It was accessible to the jam. And surely what you're thinking is, well, how's that going to work in a 7-inch deep frame? Well, that's going to work just fine. There's the jam. The door was, I don't really know. The installation may have been like that, and your door may have been like that. That might have been what they're doing. Well, you might say, well, 7-inch, gosh, that's a deal breaker. It's not at all, actually. Let's get that mortise, that electrified mortise deadbolt installed. Then determine, quite frankly, the length of the mortise cylinders we need. 3.5 inch, 3 3/8 long, probably 3.5 inch mortise cylinders. No problem. No problem at all. In fact, I've done longer cylinders than that. key control access from both sides of the opening. That's all, no problem. That's going to work just fine. And at the end of the day, the client did not end up installing this that way. In fact, the client went radio silent at that point, and coincidentally, earlier this week I received contact from the client, and I said, "What happened?" He says they completely tossed people off the project, and who knows what they did. But that would have worked out quite splendidly, that lock that's there. That would have been perfect. I've used it successfully in other applications as well. So I like SDC because of this neat product line, but I also like them a lot for the following reason. And let's wrap up this video on camera and I'll tell you. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. And the reason to really think about SDC and the reason I like them a lot is good quality products, good pricing, great value, but it's when you call their tech support is indefatigable. You can't wear these guys down. They are super knowledgeable, excellent bedside manner, are in almost every single instance able to give me the information I needed. Long story short, I was cannibalizing two pieces of equipment. I needed to make a Rixson electric deadbolt that Rixson stopped making 20 years ago. I needed to get Rockwood to make a faceplate, and I needed to get an SDC deadbolt. And they were good enough to give me the thread type. There's a 3/4 27 thread on their bolt position, on their door position switch. That's the ball auto relock. I asked them for a technical drawing of the faceplate to save me the time of measuring it. They declined offering that to me, which I do understand. But they are really super helpful. If you are new to electrified hardware, you'll soon, as did I, realize a really smart alignment with working with not only their products, but also the people that stand behind them. So that's why I recommend them. Any questions on the SDC 918 keypad or any other SDC product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.